This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring author, psychologist, and daily contributor, Shavaun Scott.
Ruby Franke, Jodi, Hildebrandt on those child abuse charges. People starting cults like this. A lot of people are making the reference of saying it seemed like she was kind of starting some sort of cult, as we've learned from some of the folks that have seen her. When people are starting a cult, is it as cut and dry as that? Does anybody start a cult? Does anybody realize they're starting a cult when they're starting a cult? Or does it kind of grow from one way of thinking and, well, more people are replying to this or more people are acting on my words? And does it grow more from there?
Yeah, I think the second. It's more of an organic process that just sort of happens. I doubt that, although that would be an interesting self-help book to write, how to start your own cult, right? I could probably write that book. Maybe then I'd finally be rich, right? I wrote the book on how to start the cult in 3 easy steps.
You need the cult, starting a cult for dummies.
Yeah, but I do think it's the person that, let's say, is the focus or the genesis of something like that. It's a person who always is seeking power and they love having followers and they've got this huge ego and they want to stand out from everyone else. They want to be different. They want to be unique. And so the narcissism is just really profound. And they tend to be sociopathic. They will use other people. So you've got a kind of standard personality type for a cult leader, and other people want to be cool. They, affiliate with them because now I'm part of the in crowd. And so you see this very clear dynamic that just starts to gel. And it can be around a religious theme. It can be around a psychological. There have been psychological self-help kind of groups, but a political group, you can have political cults, but basically it happens organically when you have a certain kind of leader and then they attach to a group of followers and it just starts to gel.
And that is interesting to see what likely happened in this case with Hildebrandt. What's your take on the way that she was practicing? I know when we talked the other week, it's angering to see that someone like this was practicing and had a license for as long as she did, even though at one point it was revoked. At one point, the church even said, we're not going to recommend people go to you anymore, although it still did continue kind of on the side. And especially what we're learning now from people who did see her. We're hearing stories of couples who went to her for marriage counseling and very much not what they received. A lot of separating people, a lot of diagnosing men with porn addictions when there wasn't one. And that should be noted, it's not even recognized in the DSM-5, and other addictions that she just kind of invented that really were not truly a thing. Give me your insights on what the heck was going on there for so long.
Yeah, that is really what makes this a cult, because she was making up her belief system as she went, and it's horrifying that she had some sort of clinical license that gave her legitimacy, and people went to her in need and they thought they were getting legitimate help, or at least that was their hope, that they would get legitimate help. And what they were getting was a big dose of toxic craziness. The lady obviously does not like men. And, had so much rage and anger that she was projecting out. And she just did immeasurable harm to people. And I'm sure over the coming years, I think she had contact with a lot of people. We'll be hearing more and more about people who come out, and we'll be talking about the damage done.
She was licensed and practicing. Is there, what kind of oversight didn't exist or was not at play here to get ahead of somebody like this who was truly destroying lives with what she was inventing and calling therapy?
Yeah, usually. Now, every state is different, and that's one of the things about our rather piecemeal government system, that some states are much more rigorous about who gets a license than others. So I'm not really familiar with Utah's laws about that. Usually you have to have at least a master's degree, and then, many hours, like 3,000 hours in both California and Oregon require 3,000 hours of experienced supervised training. And then you have to pass a rigorous exam, and in some cases an oral exam with a board of people in addition to a written exam. It's different everywhere. But once a person is licensed, there's probably not a lot, if any, oversight going on unless there are complaints. But if there are any complaints to the licensing board, then that is supposed to be vigorously investigated, because the purpose of the licensing board is to protect the consumer and to keep the community safe from harmful practitioners, whether it's a surgeon or a therapist or whatever. Even cosmetologists have a licensing board, right? And so that's how it's supposed to function. What went wrong here? Were there just not many complaints? I know there were at least a few, and she did get in trouble at some point. But clearly, whatever was done, there was not enough oversight. And this lady, if she did pass and made it through getting her license, she should not have kept it. And, hopefully lessons learned by the licensing board here. And again, these are government-funded agencies, and they're usually as government agencies are, they're understaffed usually.
Yeah.
And I think probably there are times that complaints are given a little bit of an investigation, but maybe not investigated as much as we'd like to see.
You're consuming the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts, and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member, exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast, dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.